Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Mexi here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Mario's Picross for the Game Boy. So, last time, we basically did manage to get started throughout the game by showing you guys the how to play video, and on top of that, we also did manage to go into the easy Picross by going into not only one, but whopping 29 puzzles to solve. So, logically though, we did somehow manage to able to solve these puzzles no problem, so that's besides the point. So today, for this video, is that we are going to be continuing things on with easy Picross by going into, let's just say, level 4-F. So because of that, and I don't think it's possible we can able to actually fully complete easy Picross in this video, but definitely in the next video for sure. Because, well, straight to the point is that obviously though, as you can tell, we got more grids. So as a result, this means about the fact that we can now able to actually decide to create a bigger shape. So because of that, this will continue that tradition until specifically later on. So because of that, yeah, with that being said, let's get the stage started right here. So as far as I'm aware, is that obviously though, this is going to be based off from a glove, as far as I can definitely tell, because even then, we did somehow manage to able to see not only one, but 4 fingers so far, and we do need to, you know, trying to create a thumb right here, which, as you can definitely tell, for the fact that, yes indeed, we did somehow manage to able to found the thumb right there. So because of that, that actually signifies a glove, so pretty substantial right there. So anyways, let's move on now to puzzle 4-G. So as a result, we are getting very close towards the end of level 4 before we move on to level 5 in terms of easy Picross. So, anywho, so yeah, there are a couple of things I want to mention to you guys about something, and that's what appears to be for the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the 2nd of December today, in some cases in 2025 today, and suffice to say that for those of you who lived in the UK, well, it's not going to be until specifically until tomorrow, but regardless of such though, we got some interesting and also exciting stuff, and also some obscure news I'd like to point things out, in regards to the forms of what's been happening so far. First of all, that Zootropolis 2, or Zootopia 2, for those of you who lived in North America, well, I'm happy to report is that that particular film is doing remarkably well. Still, as a matter of fact though, that film is currently now on to, let's say $560 million for its box office, and not only does that particular film is currently on to 10th place right now, in terms of highest grossing films of 2025, but it's also about the fact that it did certainly beat out the Fantastic Four First Steps. And I have to be honest here, I think I might actually get excited for Zootropolis 2 a lot more, just because every time whenever I do manage to watch Zootopia or Zootropolis on Disney Plus or the DVD physical version, it always makes me smile to my face, especially because, you know, I absolutely still adore Zootropolis, and in addition to Zootropolis 2 as well. So because of that, again, no spoilers for the time being, just because obviously that film just only came out ever since around a couple of days ago. So because of that, yeah, that might be something worth knowing for. So, and for those of you probably wondering, yeah, I do apologize for that awkward commentary for a little bit, but it's mainly because, as you can probably tell, since that we are on the 2nd of December, like I said before, I recently started eating up some of my glorious mince pies, along with the forms of clotted cream and ice cream as a combination. So because of that, yeah, that does taste a lot more satisfying if you're trying to go for a lot of festive moments. So because of that, and speaking of which though, we just literally got about 23 more days to go until Christmas is about to start, and alongside with that, we not long now until Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is getting closer and closer and closer. So no matter what though, we got literally 2 days left now until the game finally came out in a public releases. So because of that, I bet there's a lot of people out there have already pre-ordered the game. In addition to that though, they've already pre-ordered specifically the Switch 2 version because of higher graphical fidelity, and not to mention though, mouse controls will be very useful when it comes to like dealing with combat and all that stuff. So anywho, and as a matter of fact though, is that we also got about 9/10 days to go until the Game Awards is about to start, but I'm still very curious to know what specific games they'll bring us into, aside from, you know, Grand Theft Auto 6 coming up at some point in next year, specifically next November, and on top of that, this could be also applies with any other surprises too. So either way, again, we'll let Silver be able to mention more about that particular subject once he goes back on playing through Mario Luigi Superstar Saga until next week, I suppose. So because of that, yeah, we did somehow manage able to create a pod right there. So yeah, it seems very legitimate. So anyway, and as you can tell, we're now on to level 5 selections of puzzles right here. So because of that though, yeah, we're about able to keep on making some interesting shapes and all that stuff. So anywho though, talking of which though, in regards to the forms of highest grossing films of 2025, no surprise there, in terms of the forms of Demon Slayer Infinity Castle is still on 5th place at the moment. So logically though, that film is currently still on to $730 million for its box office. So it's doing, you know, pretty well. But I think it's all likely in the next couple of weeks later, and maybe supposedly until at the start of 2026, it could be possible about the fact that Zootropolis 2 or Zootopia 2 will still able to actually catch up in terms of the forms of the box office records. And in fact, as a matter of fact, my prediction was, I don't think it's possible it will able to actually catch up to Neo Sia 2 at this point in time, because Neo Sia 2 is still at, you know, $2 billion for its box office when it comes to animated films, when it comes to highest grossing films of all time. But regardless of such though, I'm really expecting that Zootopia 2 or Zootropolis 2, that it will certainly did trump not only Lilo and Stitch remake, but also with the forms of a Minecraft movie especially, because, well, I just really can't help it for myself about the fact that at this point in time, to me though, that Zootropolis 2 or Zootopia 2 is now easily my favorite film I've ever seen in this whole entire year in terms of 2025, and it's easily the best way to end things off before the actual year concludes. Well, suffice to say though, we still got some films left, like for instance though, we still got Five Nights at Freddy's 2 coming up, and on top of that, the SpongeBob movie Search for SquarePants, and of course, most notably, Avatar, Fire, and Ash. So because of that, and relatively speaking, I was about the fact I might able to actually pass on those 3, just because obviously, as you probably would expect, the next film I'm going to be seeing until specifically next year is not Hoppers, by the way, but the Super Mario Galaxy movie, because, you know, I'm still incredibly excited for that film personally, just because I'm always a big fan, not just by the films of Super Mario Galaxy, but most notably Super Mario Galaxy 2, because both of those games to me though are my favorite games of all time. So because of that, I know there are some other opinions out there, but regardless of such though, this is entirely my own opinion. So yeah, I can't really judge a book from its cover, but regardless of such though, it's just about the fact I'm so excited to see, you know, Bowser Jr. on screen, or on a big screen I should say, and in addition to Rosalina as well, because those 2 major characters for the upcoming movie will be the major highlight in terms of that particular film coming up. So because of that, well, we're still really expecting if Yoshi makes his appearance as well. Well, we shall wait and see what happens during at some point until the next 4 months at this point, because as a matter of fact, we've almost got about, you know, 4 months left until the actual film decides to come out. So because of that, maybe we can able to try to think about something in regards to the films to try to do a bit of a countdown before the release of, well, again, that'll be a topic until for a later time, but for now, we somehow created a boot image. So that seems very odd, but regardless of such, let's move on to the next puzzle right here. But yeah, no matter what though, there's nothing else I can really say about this for the most part. Well, aside from the fact that, well, like I said before, is that hopefully though that Zootropolis 2 will easily become a much more of a successful film in terms of not only review scores alike, but in addition to that though, with the forms of box office results as well. Well, apart from one reviewer exception to that, however though, is that, you notice there was actually the reviewer called The Guardian, by the way. Well, for some stupid reason, they somehow give the film a lower score, which I was like, are you guys kidding me? Because, you know, I love Zootropolis, and as well as the sequel, but it's mainly because, you know, it's been great to see not only Judy Hopps on a big screen once again, but in addition to Nick Wilde as well, because, come on, how are you able to actually try to consider the actual, like, a bit of a safe side or something like that? Well, mind you though, I'm a little bit, too biased, I suppose, in regards to the forms of, you know, judging, different perspectives or something, but, oh well, no big deal. I'll just let that slide, I suppose. Anyway, and, talking of which though, actually, in regards to the forms of something video game related, as you probably already know, that Paramount is going to be planning an untitled Sonic Universe event movie until specifically December 2028. So, yeah, that's going to be for a very long time. Especially, like, we have to wait for about 3 years up to this point. Especially because that might actually be the second time, as far as I'm aware, that the Sonic movie related thing is going to be releasing in December since last year with Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Despite the fact that that film came out the exact same week as that very, very underwhelming Mufasa the Lion King, in my opinion, but that's mainly because, you know, I'm just not a big fan of the live-action Disney stuff anymore, because even then, animation is what I'm mostly familiar with, especially because of all that, you know, the amount of emotions, and on top of that, facial expressions. I really cannot help myself off laugh at it, especially because they're a lot more expressive, unlike, you know, some other live-action Disney movies for this point, is that it just feels a bit, kind of feels a bit lifeless, and not to mention though, soulless to me. But regardless of such though, that's just probably just for my take anyway, plus mainly because, you know, I'm so done with the films that format at this point, so... Anywho though, so yeah, aside from the films of the Super Mario Galaxy movie I'm looking forward to, I might still also check out, you know, Toy Story 5 in case if it's good or not, but regardless of such though, I shall wait and see what happens. And then meanwhile, on the subject for that matter, I'm also expecting to try to go ahead and see not only one, but 2 Marvel films in 2026, which appears to be, you know, Spider-Man Brand New Day, and on top of that, Avengers Doomsday. And maybe, just maybe, until by the end of 2026, I might be very curious to check out the Angry Birds Movie 3, if it's anything else possible. But regardless of such though, because it's been like, you know, a very long while since we last had the Angry Birds movie, since the second one came out in 2019, and I found the second film to be pretty good in my opinion. Well, not the first one per se, because the first film feels a bit, well, it's pretty meh to me, but still, regardless of such though, because back in 2016, whenever I did manage to check out the Angry Birds movie when it did somehow first came out, despite the fact I missed out on the beginning scenes, but regardless of such though, or the opening logos for that matter, because no matter what though, I've realized that the intro sequence feels a bit out of sequence, like it shows the title, then it shows the studios present, and it cuts to random points in between, you know, the past and present elements when it comes to Red's perspective. I mean, I'll get into more details about that when it gets to the point until next year's 10th anniversary of the Angry Birds movie, the first one by the way, because until next year, my god, that particular film is going to be 10 years old next year, which, man, time flies. Which, I get it because, you know, the box office is actually doing quite good back then, but nowhere near as like as much compared to the forms of how it does it for Zootropolis or Zootopia to me though, because, you know, it's a shame about the fact that while looking back in 2016, I really do wish if I want to see Zootropolis on the big screen, because I just haven't got around to it, which even then though, because thankfully Zootropolis 2 recently, that I did at very least manage able to see it on the big screen, which I'm very happy for. But anyway, let me think of something, because I feel like that I'm actually missing something, because there might be a couple of times though, I might easily get sidetracked in regards to the forms of which specific tile I did somehow miss. But if I accidentally choose the wrong tile, that just takes away my time. So because of that, there might be a couple of times though where concentration is key here, especially because it also requires a lot of thinking too, because, well, you pretty much get the idea how this game plays out to be. Ah, there we go. And we somehow create a light bulb, or just bulb in general, so they can use that for lights. So I guess that makes it a little bit more sense for that regard. So anyway, so now let's move on to the next stage right here. And oh boy, if we go on to level 6, 7, or 8 especially in Easy Picross, as well as the later stages to come, the grid itself might actually get a lot bigger and stuff like that. So, but I digress. So, now, as far as I can definitely tell, is that, speaking of Disney in general, oh my lord, you will never believe what just happened ever since, I think that was actually in, yesterday, if I could recall. Did you guys do not know that not only did Disney Plus decide able to bring in not 1, but 3, well actually, kind of think about it, no, scratch that, 6 films that is now officially appeared on Disney Plus. And can you guess what those films are? Well, don't believe me? Well, there's Shrek 1, Shrek 2, Shrek the Third, not Shrek 4 apparently, and there's also Back to the Future 1, Back to the Future Part 2, and Back to the Future Part 3, all appeared on Disney Plus. And I'm like, oh no, Disney, you need to... What do we talk about this? I mean, relatively speaking though, that remember back in the 1990s? Well, to be more accurate though, that the very end of the 1990s is that Disney. Do you remember that you and DreamWorks usually become rivals back then? Especially notable that you, Disney, managed able to make A Bug's Life, and then meanwhile for DreamWorks they somehow made Ants, right? Right? Well, here's the thing though, because I've noticed about the fact that there might be some of those Universal films, they did somehow manage to technically appear in Disney Plus, like for instance, as I mentioned this earlier, Back to the Future trilogy, which I'm just like, that's a very odd choice, they will actually bring those 3 films into the Disney Plus streaming services, which, yeah, it feels rather odd and bizarre at the same time, and when it comes to Shrek 1, 2, and 3, or Shrek the Third if you will, that they're all, basically, DreamWorks movies into this whole entire... Oh my goodness, what the heck is going on with Disney Plus all of a sudden? Because I don't know. I just don't know what to say about this for the sake of time for this point, folks. I mean, they just seriously get out of control in regards to the forms of certain films they did somehow bring up onto that particular streaming services, which I get it because, you know, Disney Plus is very popular for its time, but regardless of such though, it just gets a bit rather odd lately with all that, you know, certain films have been listed. I mean, could you imagine this, right? If one of the DreamWorks films will make it into Disney Plus, like, oh, I don't know, Ants, for instance? Well, that just might becomes a lot more... oh, I don't know, obscure or anything else like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I found that film to be very underrated in my opinion, but still, it just feels very convoluted whenever they do manage to bring this up. I mean, jeez. I mean, yeah, I can totally see why, for the fact that, well, it just gets very odd lately with all that particular... Well, I do remember that back in, I would say in 2023, actually, where they also did the same thing in regards to the forms of Chicken Run, specifically the first film, by the way, because even then, to able to mark the celebration for approaching towards, you know, the second film will be on its way onto Netflix. Like, I get it, because in Netflix case, I understand when it comes to more accurately bringing, you know, a bunch of DreamWorks films onto Netflix, because even then, it's most notably for every single film companies, like, you know, let's just say DreamWorks I mentioned earlier, and in addition to Illumination, Universal Pictures and stuff like that, and much more, but not for Disney, because, you know, Disney got their very own live stream services, or streaming services I should say, but still, it just, well, since what I was able to check out on Disney Plus the other day, and then when I first saw Shrek 2, and Shrek the Third on there, I'm like, wait a minute, that can't be right. Especially noticeable because, like I said before, 3 of these films are DreamWorks movies, the anti-Disney kind of vibes. So no matter what though, yeah, I just got nothing else to say. Like, anyway, move along. So anyways, as you can see, we're about to be moving on to the next puzzle right here, which, suffice to say, we are essentially going to be making a baseball. Because, get it? Because you know that it does have curves on both sides of the actual ball. So, yeah, I guess that makes it pretty obvious. It almost becomes like an actual baseball. So, mind you, we don't usually create a bat or anything else like that. So, anyways, let's move on to puzzle C, or puzzle 6-C. Now, as far as I can definitely tell, that this particular puzzle, depending on what specific region you lived in, likely the Japanese version or the English version, I should say, basically though, is that I'm pretty sure for the fact that no matter what though, we might able to actually try to create a familiar image based off from any other Mario games. Specifically, for instance, Super Mario Bros. 3, which you know exactly what I'm on about, which, yeah, I'm gonna have to think about something for a second there once I decide able to mention about that subject, so... And, believe it or not, we somehow create a Boo. So, yeah, it seems pretty interesting. Now, if you ever play the Japanese version of this puzzle right here, the actual Boo image will be replaced by a cocktail, so... Yeah, that's one thing I might able to classify for mentioning about that stuff. So, but there's also another stage coming up for it, which appears to be puzzle 7B. That obviously, though, we might come across into another differences. Well, I don't know if I can able to try to show you guys that, but I will mention about this briefly until whenever we get into that particular puzzle. So, but anyway, so yeah, I guess there's nothing else I can really say. Like I said, because even then. Still, it just feels rather bizarre with all that particular... you get the idea. But anyway, let's just move on. So, anyway, on the subject for that matter though, recently though, Stuart, or CapKing74, he's recently finished up not only Pikmin, but in addition to Luigi's Hidden Mansion playthrough, specifically the PAL version, not once, but twice in the exact same day simultaneously, likely also... yesterday, as a matter of fact, because even then, I can totally see why for the fact he's doing pretty good at Pikmin, although unfortunately though, in Luigi's Hidden Mansion playthrough, he once again come across into the game over, so as a result though, he now got the second game over on that run, because I'm telling you, the final boss in a Hidden Mansion mode is really, really brutal, especially because of all that. You know, the bombs goes off very fast and quick, and not only that, the damage algorithm is actually ridiculously high compared to the defaults of how it does on a normal Mansion playthrough, which I can totally see why. Getting a gold frame on a Hidden Mansion mode is actually a lot tougher on the PAL version, because even then, unlike the normal playthrough, it's actually self-explanatory when you get the hang of it though, so because of that, yeah, but regardless of such though, although technically, from what I can gather, that he's still technically not done in terms of Pikmin just yet, before he decides to move along to the next playthrough at some point in the near future. Likely, for instance though, I get the feeling he might able to actually try to finishing up the entire challenge modes in between the Distant Spring, which I remember back then, that's the level I basically stuck on whenever I managed to play it on the Wii version, but that's the reason why I no longer play Pikmin games anymore, just because of all that, the lack of skills, or the lack of tactics, as far as, you know, dealing with combat and everything, so because of that, because, fortunately enough for me though, at the very least I'm now starting into, like, you know, other franchises back then, like, you know, I'm now into Metroid, because, you know, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is getting closer to its release, and I seriously cannot wait to be looking forward to able to getting the game. Well, apart from the fact that I might not get it in day one, because, relatively speaking, that'll be a part of my, Christmas wish list. So because of that, that'll be my exciting gift, as far as I'd like to have, so... Yeah, that'll be totally excitement, along with the Evolves of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero for Switch 2 as well, despite, you know, the infamous stupid game key card format, so... Anyway, so it looks like we did somehow make a, let's say, a wild duck, as far as I can definitely tell. Although I'm pretty sure it's about the fact it almost reminds me of a similar vibes, as in one of those Merry Melodies kind of cartoon, or specifically the Looney Tunes cartoon that involves around Duffy Duck and stuff like that. which I think I sort of saw that in one of those YouTube compilations for the sake of the forms of Looney Tunes cartoons as of lately. So, oh yeah, speaking of Looney Tunes though, I might able to actually check out Coyote vs. Acme at some point once the actual film comes out on a big screen in everywhere else this time around, because if it does though, well, as long as if the trailer decides to come in, I might actually check that film out actually, because even then, well, as long as about the fact that the only thing I was a little bit skeptical about is that, well, suffice to say though, despite I still have not seen the day the Earth blown up Daffy Duck movie, because even if I can gather, that film only exists in America. Well, I haven't really checked out the Apple TV lately, but I might check on that once I've done with this particular recording session, if you couldn't tell. So because of that, yeah, I might have to think about that. So anyway, it looks like we're about to be making a chicken, which, again, that's another thing about the forms of while looking back in the earliest days of 2025, that somebody managed able to bring a real chicken while they watching, you know, the Minecraft movie on a big screen. And seriously, it just feels a bit all over the place when it comes to more accurately some of these aspects in terms of 2025, at least on some capacity. But oh well. Anyways, let's move on now to puzzle 6-G. So it feels like we're actually getting very close towards the end of level 6 before we move along to level 7. Actually, kind of think about it, I'm pretty sure that when it comes to more specifically level I can't really know anymore, because even then it has been about a couple of hours since I actually have last played this game for sure, because even then, straight to the point, we can easily guaranteed able to play this game for a while. Just before, you know, Blaze will decide able to conclude every aspect in terms of, you know, Donkey Kong Country 3, and like I said before, well, at least to be more specifically for the Game Boy Advance version, and then meanwhile for Silver the Hedgehog, he will able to actually come back on playing through Mario Luigi Superstar Saga until next week, like I said before, and just in time before, you know, the Game Awards is about to be fully begun. So, and as far as the final 2 Let's Plays are concerned, well, again, it's going to be a super top secret, because after all, we've already gone through, you know, Splatoon lately, especially because, you know, thanks to Ray, he did somehow finishing up, or already did manage to finish up, I should say, when it comes to Splatoon for the Wii U, and eventually at some point we will get around on doing Splatoon 2 until next year, and also maybe Splatoon 3 as well for 2027, if assuming, of course, about the fact that we're able to try to think about something. So, anyway, so we somehow made a snail, so as a result, we're now going to be moving on to level 6-H right here. And as far as I'm aware, until level 7 and level 8 on easy Picross, that the grid itself is going to get much, much bigger. So, usually for the sake of time though, it's more accurately like, in the earliest stages, it goes by like 5x5 in a grid formation. And then in the later middle portion of some stages though, like in easy Picross for instance, that it just goes by 10x10 in grid base. And then until likely in level 7, all the way up to level 8 in this particular mode specifically, it just somehow managed able to go up to like 15x15 with all that particular grid, as you can definitely tell. But anyway, let's just go ahead and try to focus on this from now on, so just in case I need to think of something here. So it seems to be more specifically, we're about to be making a familiar face. So, and it's more specifically Mario, which I get it because of all that, you know, familiar sprite ever since not only Donkey Kong on the arcade machine, but in addition to that though, just any other Mario games in general, like, you know, Super Mario Bros. 2, aka Super Mario USA, for those who live in Japan, and you pretty much get the idea about that. So yeah, we somehow created Mario himself. So logically though, there you are Mario, but on an 8-bit sprite formation, so yeah, that seems very cool. Anyway, so now let's move on to level 7 in terms of these puzzles to solve. And yes, as you can see, the grid is now going to get much bigger than the forms of how it does it back in, well, a couple of stages ago. So because of that, Oh geez, something tells me though I might have to try to mark the insane amounts of those X's and stuff like that, so... Oh man. And eventually at some point, some later puzzles can get pretty tough if you pretty much know exactly what to expect, so... Anyway, so let's go ahead and, try to... Oh dang it, I somehow messed it up. And it may look like we somehow decided able to create a... If I can recall, like a lipstick or something? Well, it could be, because I can definitely tell we are miraculously trying to make a shape like the lipstick. So, let's need to figure out the actual, certain tiles we do need to break. Despite the fact that I've almost gonna be messed up at that point, but regardless, I think that's pretty much it. Huh, does take me quite a while to figure this out. And sure enough, it's a lipstick. So, how's up for that one? So, anyway, let's move on to puzzle 7-B next. Okay, another jump cut right there, because I, unfortunately, though, got interrupted by something. But, oh well, no big deal. So, and I can definitely tell that this is another one of those stages that also has some differences depending on what region you lived in. Likely, for instance though, on the Japanese version of this stage, you're able to actually try to make a wine glass. So, no matter what though, on the English version, it might actually become like a different object. So, yeah, we're trying to figure something this out once we do manage to, you know, mark these X's around. So just in case I don't want to waste... I'll try to not to lose too much of my time. Well, except for that spot over there. But, oh well, no big deal. Because, yeah, no matter what though, I think that's as far as I can say in terms of the actual comparison between the Japanese release and the English release in terms of the easy Picross selections of stages with the forms of different shapes and everything. So, anyways though. Oh yeah, and there's also another thing I'd like to point out too, is that at this point in time, since we're still on 2025 after all, in regards to the forms of the Mario Party games, as far as you can definitely tell, in terms of the minigames variety, where it comes to every single entries in the series, including Mario Party E and all that stuff, that just brings us into, well, if you also want to include the Jamboree TV portion of the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Party Jamboree, that brings us into whopping 1,411 minigames total at this point in time in regards to the forms of a Mario Party series of games when it comes to minigame variety. So because of that, that does seem quite a lot, doesn't it? Especially because considering for the fact that, well, back in Sonic Shuffle though, it only has like, I don't know, lesser amounts of minigames as far as I can definitely tell. Although if you also want to include the party mode portion on Sonic and the Secret Rings, I believe you might be able to get a couple of amount of minigames too, but regardless of such though, I haven't really thought out the forms of the mathematical equations or anything else to be more specifically of how many minigames that Sonic actually got for the actual party games, like, you know, Sonic Shuffle and Sonic and the Secret Rings, because gee, no wonder why. It's been such a very long time we've never actually got a Sonic party game, since technically party mode in Sonic and the Secret Rings that does utilize Wii mode motion controls. So maybe at some point, maybe that NT Cube might try to get involved with the Sonic party game, but I highly doubt it, because even then, after all, we've already got Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, obviously. So, and also, while on the subject, in regards to the forms of 2016, as a matter of fact, while looking back on it though, I honestly have no idea why I somehow managed able to go after the DVD version of the Jungle Book remake as opposed to Zootropolis on DVD, and I was just like, I just felt very guilty if I do that, because even then, because like I said before, I'm so sick of the forms of the actual, the most recent format when it comes to Disney live-action movies up to this point, because it starts to get pretty stale, and not to mention though, it's getting old very fast. So, but that's just for my take anyway, like I said, because, well, you get the idea for this point, and I do apologize for that very unexpected, sniffiness that's been going on, because, well, luckily though, I, still feeling fine, but it's just that sometimes though, that have to focus on it sometimes, especially noticeable if I get so much distractions or anything else like that, I can easily mess up a couple of times. But fortunately though, you can able to actually retry as many of those puzzles as many times as you liked it to, as be expected when it comes to puzzle games alike. So anyways, we did somehow manage able to create an axe, which I can definitely tell it did say an axe without an E. So yeah, that's something. So I suppose we should probably do 3 more puzzles to go, because like I said before, I don't think it's possible for me to try to able to, you know, conclude every aspect in terms of easy Picross, but again, until tomorrow, that we will able to actually get into the main attraction, specifically until tomorrow, once we finish up with easy Picross, so, but I digress. So, yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Have you ever encountered, not only Shrek 1, but in addition to Shrek 2 and Shrek the 3rd on Disney+? Because for me, I've come across since that, like I said before, and still, it just feels rather odd. Especially, imagine this, right? If they added in another selections of DreamWorks movies on Disney+, that would be so obsoletely odd. Likely, if they decided to add it in, the Prince of Egypt, or, let's just say Spirit of Stallion, or, Chicken Run again, or, Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, or, Flushed Away, or, Over the Hedge. I mean, there's a bunch of DreamWorks movies out there, especially at this point in time. The latest one we've actually got is, Gappy's, Dream House, I think it's what it says anyway. I mean, mind you though, I haven't really checked the film out for myself, because I'm not exactly that particular demographic, so because of that, well, despite the fact that the actual review scores has actually gone pretty good, for what I've noticed, especially noticeable is almost like a hybrid between, not just live action, but also animated at the same time, so at the very least though, that's something. Well, despite the fact I don't suppose the amount of, box office numbers is not gonna help that much, because it's like, well, DreamWorks is sometimes feels a bit, well, pretty much all over the place when it comes to likely box office results, because no wonder why that DreamWorks has not made it into, well, $1 billion mark in terms of the box office. Well, again, the closest one we've ever got in terms of near towards $1 billion, and that's what appears to be Shrek 2, because in Shrek 2's case, it did somehow reach for about, let's say $900,000 or $900 million or something like that. Well, as a matter of fact though, it has been quite some time since I actually have last watched Shrek 2, but that's mainly because, well, I did have some low expectations for the sake of Shrek 5 coming up and during at some point in 2027 if possible, so. And talking of movies though, actually, that, as I mentioned about this before, in terms of something like Sonic movie cinematic universe thing, that I'm very curious to know what the next, it's more likely like a spin-off movie more than anything, so I couldn't possibly imagine if they decided focusing on either Shadow, or Amy, or a different character altogether. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens, and during at some point in sometime in 2028, shortly after the release of Sonic the Hedgehog 4, or was it Sonic CD, depending on the forms of that particular, well, let's just say the rumor or speculations is actually kicking up about. But regardless of such though, again, we shall wait and see what happens in due time, until, you know, 2027 and also 2028 respectively, so. Anyways, let's go and try to figure out this next puzzle right here, which, suffice to say, we are essentially going to be making, I don't know about you, likely a train? To be more accurate though, I mean, yeah, it's gonna have to able to try to think about the specific titles to smash through, so yeah, it does look like we're about to be making a train or anything else like this, so anywho though. And, yeah, again, there's nothing else I can really say about this, honestly, guys. I mean, apart from the fact that, as far as I'm aware, that's been, 25 years ago since that particular Scooby-Doo movie, which appears to be Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders did somehow first came out in the millennium year in the 2000s. Because I did somehow mention about this briefly, because I do remember when I was younger, when I managed able to got myself the, let's say the rental copy. Oh, it's a locomotive. Okay, I sort of gone close by that, but it has a specific name for it, so yeah, I guess that makes it pretty obvious. But anyway, so let's just say we're about to be doing the one last puzzle for today, and eventually until tomorrow I will continue on the rest. So anywho though, as I was saying, because I remember when I managed able to keep on watching Pokemon the first movie on the VHS, that particular trailer alone of Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders always attempt to come up at the very beginning of the start of the film on the advert break. So no matter what though, that I've not seen that film for myself, because even then, I'm not really into Scooby-Doo as much as anyone else does, because obviously though, I just prefer, like, slapstick comedy and stuff like that, like, with Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, and even nowadays, Tiny Toon Adventures, and so much more, because, every time when, slapstick decides to come in, it just makes my laugh giggle a lot, especially because of all that. Well, let's just say one of the most famous examples being in Tom and Jerry, because my goodness, the sound effects are really over the top. Specifically, the original series, where it comes to more accurately in back in very long time ago. Especially, again, it's insane how it's been 85 years since Tom and Jerry did somehow first appeared on. So yeah, time flies, kind of think about it. I see, we're about to be making an ice lolly. Or to be more accurate though, just a lolly in general, so there we go. Well, at least we did somehow solve that. Oh, just a frozen pop. Okay, so that's what it's known as. So, anyway, suffice to say for this point, guys, is that we should probably end things off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Mario's Picross for the Game Boy. Is that, suffice to say, not only we can able to finish up the forms of Easy Picross, but also at some points we can able to actually dive into regular Picross on the first, some sort of course for that matter. But we shall wait and see. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.